Hello, you adoring fans. What we're looking at here is Gizel Voloka. She's just a character of mine, not special in any regard for the purposes of this video. What we're going to do is look at how the heals work. So just a quick self-promotion because I don't make any money on YouTube. I don't have advertising. I don't have any monetization, etc., etc. The only way I can make any money on any of this is if you come to one of my stores. Here's the store on ArtStation, but you can also do Flipped Normals or Gumroad. I've got stores there as well. And either buy a character or a tutorial. I've got multiple tutorials and characters available. One of which, of course, is Gizel Voloka herself. If you want to purchase her, she is available to purchase and understand. And then you can use that to figure out how I'm doing things, or get the tutorials if you want a step-by-step walkthrough. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on with our rig here. So I've got uh, a control here, and this control decides whether she's standing in a high heels pose or whether she's standing in a barefoot pose. So here she is in the high heels pose. I'm going to take the heels off of her here, and then I'm going to move this control down. What you can see will happen is she'll go into a barefoot stance here. And I don't have a floor, but this is the way she's modeled. This is flat to the floor here. So she would be touching the floor here. And as I move this up, she comes a little bit up off the floor from her heels. And then as I continue moving it up, she actually comes up off the floor with her toes as well. So let's go to an ortho view here, and you can kind of see what's going on. So as I move it up to the top, you can see she's actually off of the floor a little bit here. And so depending on how you set the behavior of this control, it'll decide how high up off the floor she might be. And so you can kind of decide what you want the heels to look like. So what I do is I put her in a high heels pose, then I model the heels so that they're touching the floor here. And then that means they're perfectly modeled. And so that when I put her in the high heels pose with the rig, then she is correct to put the heels on, that they'll be touching the floor. And then when I put her in a barefoot pose, which I can do now while she's wearing the heels, then the heels will be below the floor here because they're modeled as in her heels up position there. So let's turn that off there so we can then see what's going on. All right, so what I'm going to do is show how I set this up. So the first thing is, let's pull in the midsection of her body here. There is a I don't see it. Do I not have it in the midsection? Oh, yes, I do see it. It's just up higher than I had expected. So this is called the center of gravity mechanism bone. This is basically, if I move this bone, her entire body moves, right? And that bone has on it a high heels raise bone constraint. And all that is copying the Y location in local space of that bone here. So this bone, when I move it on its Y axis, that is up and down. And as you can see, because I've got her posed here where the center of gravity bone is a bit on an angle, you'll see that as I'm moving this up and down, she actually moves a little bit forward and back. And that's because it moves on its own Y-axis. If I put her in the A pose here, then the bone is straight up and down. And so if I move the control up and down, she only goes up and down. She doesn't go in any right or left or forward or back or anything because that bone is perfectly set there. So what's the next thing I should talk about? The next thing I should talk about is the heels rotating, right? So that bone moves her entire body up. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is make sure her heels rotate down, right? And so the way I do that is on the feet. So let's find feet. Butt, hips, there we go. There's the feet there. So on here, there's a control here, and then there's actually a mechanism bone that's kind of the parent of all the feet bones, and that has on it a heels foot rotate constraint. This is a transformation constraint that goes from the location of this control bone here to the rotation of this mechanism bone here. And so what that means is as she goes from not on high heels up to 0.15 meters, which is how high that gets moved up for the heels position, then her foot rotates 45 degrees, right? So that's that right there. The next thing is there's a special controller I have here that I can use to move all of her toes simultaneously, or rotate her toes simultaneously, whatever. And so that one also has a constraint on it. Again, actually, I should probably, while I'm here, clean up after myself, collapse down those things that I've got. Okay, let's go back to this control here. Pardon me. So there's a heels, toes, rotate. So what I want to do there is I want these toes to go from this when she's standing in a barefoot to this, which is what the heels do to her. Now, if you're, for some reason, you've got heels that are doing something else besides pushing the toes back, you would do something else. But in this case, I have some pretty normal pretty normal heels. So it moves all the toes back like that. The other thing it does is it squeezes the toes together. So this particular control, if I scale it on its x-axis, her toes either spread apart or jam together. And so again, this is also a transformation that is from the location of that control bone over here to the scale of this control here. So that way, what I do is I have three different things now. I've got her body moves up, her heels rotate down, and then her toes squash together a bit and point straight forward. So we can look at that a little bit more detail here. That's what that looks like right there. And so then I can model the heel onto her body, boom, like that. And it looks natural, it looks good. And I can have the exact same animation other than her feet. And so one of the limitations of this system, which is probably going to be a limitation of every system, is that if I pose her toes, like say I grab her toe here, well, that shoe is modeled to her feet. And so if I pose her bare feet and then have her do something with her toes and then switch into heels mode, the heels will be all messed up because they're wired to her feet. And so what I have to do, say I create an animation where she's barefoot and she's doing things with her toes, but then I want to later on put heels on her, then what I have to do is go delete every keyframe where I'm doing something with her toes so that the new animation, her feet just do the boring thing. Like the only thing that should be animated is this control here. Everything beyond it down here in this area should not be animated when her toes or when her shoes are on. This also might change a little bit if you have shoes that would be allowed, her toes would be allowed to move in. So definitely modify that based on whatever your needs are. But that's everything to it. There is nothing else. As I mentioned on CG Dive when I talked about I have a setup for this, I would probably actually use action constraints if I needed this moment instead of using transformation constraints. But that is how it is done now, so it definitely will work. And so, yes, if you have any questions, I suppose, ask in the comments, or if you are on the CG Dive Discord, feel free to ask there, or come to my Discord. I have my own Discord where I talk about all kinds of things about thin female characters. So thanks very much for